Alright, so as I said before, we're going to come down here and deal with the suspension now to get these axles out. You do have to pull these out so that you can pull the transmission out as a whole. As you can see way down in there, this axle goes all the way into the transmission, and you can see there's the shift linkages down there and the part of the exhaust we're going to have to take off, but we'll deal with that in a minute. You will need a 32mm socket for this guy, because to take off the axle nut. So if you don't have one of those, you're gonna have to get one of those. You will need to break that nut loose. I will say, if you're doing the swap like on a hatchback, like an EF hatch, like a 88 through 91 hatch, that is a standard. Most of those come with 4-speed manuals. Or if you're doing this on a CRX, that is an HF. You're not going to be able to do the B series swap, because unless you get some LX or even EX or DX knuckles, because if you try to do the swap and use the B series axles, they won't fit. The B series axle is a little bit bigger. I think the HF and standard axles take a 30mm socket, I believe. I don't know, it's been so long, but I know they don't work. So this is an LX, they'll fit in here, so I don't have to do anything with these brakes. They can just stay the same for now. But pretty much, in order to get this out, well, obviously there's many ways you can go about this. A lot of people have different ways to do different stuff, or different ways to do the same thing. I've always pulled the top ball joint off. So as you can see, there's two 10s that are covering up a nut. That's a 17mm under there, I believe. I'm going to loosen that up, break that loose, and then I'm going to take off the tie rod, which is over here, held on by a nut on the bottom. Those are the two I'm going to break loose. That'll allow the knuckle to kind of fall down towards me. That'll give me enough room to get the axle out of the hub. You'll also need to loosen up this suspension fork, which is attached to the lower control arm right here, two 17s. So I'm not going to mess with this lower ball joint at all. It does need to be replaced, but I am not messing with it right now. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to do then is I'll probably go on ahead and just loosen up this 17mm here, and that'll take the suspension fork off. I'm just going to use my impact, make it nice and quick. That. And if you turn this enough, you can kind of just barely work the axle out of there, like so. So you see it's free. So the only thing we got to do now is go under the car and pop it loose. So, alright, now I'm laying up under the car. Got the exhaust right here. Got the axle right here. That one I just pulled out is going straight into the transmission. If you just stare straight up at it, it's a little coupling. Now granted, you probably want to drain the transmission first, which actually I'm probably going to do, because if you pull out these axles, sometimes some transmission fluid is going to come out. So matter of fact, I better just drain that transmission fluid real quick. See, this is a good spot to show you this axle on this side. As you can see, it just goes straight in. So all you do is get yourself a pry bar and just come up kind of like behind here like this, and you can just pop it out. See, like that one, I just popped it out. It's pretty easy to pop them out. So this one is already out completely, and you usually do the same thing for the other side. So as you can see, I got the axle out. Just slip it past this, got it here like so, and that's it, and that's the axle out. And then pretty much we just do to the other side the same thing we did to this side. Loosen up the brake line so that everything can just hang here, and loosen up the suspension and the tie rod, upper ball joint. And you can just let this stuff hang here for now, because you're gonna have to put the new axles in afterwards. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knock out the other side, and now I can show you how to take off the shift linkage and the exhaust stuff. All right, got the other axle out over here. It's on the ground over there. So, you know, when I was driving this car before, I was noticing that I thought the mounts were broke because, you know, these torque mounts break a lot. Then I was down here messing around, and look at this. I could just loosen up these mounts by hand, these bolts. And this thing looks like it's not even sitting on all the way. So, I don't know, maybe that guy was doing some 9,000 RPM launches and ripped these things out of there. Anyway, now comes the suckiest part of this whole job, is the shift linkage pin. Now, realistically, it's supposed to use a what's called a roll pin punch, and you hammer it out and it hits the pin out of the shift linkage. If you can buy one, go buy one. I don't know the size of it exactly. I've never even used one. Well, I've used a drift before, and it came out that way, but really you're supposed to use a roll pin punch because it's a roll pin that's in there. Most guys maybe switch to a 10mm bolt. I know I have before in the past, and it works. But in the case of this, you can, most of the time, you can just use the right size bolt that's long enough to hit it with the hammer. For me, I'm going to use this 6mm Allen. It's damaged already, so I don't really care if I mess it up. And it's attached to a 3-inch extension. All I'm going to do is hammer this straight up in there, and that should knock the pin out. That way you can take the shift linkage off. It's more on that. There you go. There's a pin that's right inside that little hole right here. You can see right here where I'm pointing at. Now this one is already loose. The shift linkage is loose because you can see the top of the pin is already up there. It's not even in all the way. So, like I said, what you want to do is use a roll pin, and to hammer that pin out, you'll just hammer the pin straight out, and then this thing will just slide back off of the shaft. And then the only other shift linkage deal you got to worry about is this this guy right here, which is just held on by a simple 12mm bolt. So first take this off, then take that off. Then you can just let this stuff hang down on the ground. You don't want to lose this pin. So there, I hit it out completely. It's out now. This is what it looks like. Okay, as you can see, I got that thing off. I just had to pry it off. It wasn't that hard, but there it is down there on the ground. That's the shift linkage. This is the guy that was on there like that. Like I said, it just slides on and off, and then the rest of the shift linkage goes on back there. So the next thing we're gonna have to do is to remove this exhaust, or remove the header piece from here. This is the header right here. This is the part that goes up attached to the head. So what I'm gonna do is just take off this. It should be good enough to just take off this little connecting piece right here, this little flex piece. And if I remove this entirely, then I should be able to just lift the engine out completely. So this is held on by. Alright, so come back up top. We're gonna have to deal with these mounts now. So what you want to do is to loosen up these 3 mount scoop bolts right here. I think they're all 17mm bolts. 1, 2, 3 right there. Don't take them out, just loosen them up. And then of course they had to start the lawnmower right now. So if you can hear me, the next one you want to do is to loosen up that bolt right here in the back, which I believe is also a 17. And again, don't take it all the way out, just loosen it up. But really what we're aiming after is to remove that mount completely, and then we'll go on ahead and remove this front mount completely, and then everything will be rested on this mount and this mount over here. So the motor will rest on those 2 mounts, no problem. These other 2 mounts are really just for the motor to like tilting. So you know, when you're accelerating super hard, so they kind of stop the engine from rotating around. They're not really holding so much weight. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try and get that back mount off now, because that's probably the hardest one to get at. And yeah, let's just get after it. Alright, so after I went crazy with all those vacuum lines, we got that we got that bracket off. Alright, the bracket is off. So I did take out the fuel line. That was the last thing I just took off. I have it wrapped up over here in a bag with the rubber band, because the car's in the garage and I don't want it smelling like fuel in here, and it will. I do have the Integra fuel line from a DC. Now I pulled this out of a DC2, which is 94 through 2001 Integra. It's actually a 98 LS engine. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to use that fuel line or if I can use the stock D series one. I'm unsure yet, so pretty sure I have to use the Integra one. Like I said, it's been so long since I've done this, so it's just all coming back to me slowly. But you know, I showed you that this mount back here, 2 wrong bolts. This bolt was wrong. These weren't even tightened at all. And come to find out, when I jacked the engine up, because I was looking at this mount over here, it's looking kind of sketchy too. As you can see, it's barely even grabbing anything. So I went on ahead and jacked up the motor, and sure enough, this mount over here is loose too. I mean, barely even connected. So basically the whole engine's been held in by that mount and maybe this front mount. So I don't really know, to tell you the truth. So what I am going to do right now though is try and take off this front mount right here, and then I'm going to go on ahead and hook up the engine hoist, because this thing is ready to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and try and take out that front mount, and hopefully the engine doesn't fall out. I don't know, we'll find out.